I hear and see all the time on like social media. It's like, I was never taught how to do my taxes in school. I was never taught how to balance my checkbook. I still see that. I still see that on Facebook. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's because it's
Like
Facebook.
no one does that anymore. Yeah, I guess it's because it's Facebook. I was never taught how to apply for a mortgage. Like, bro, okay, I'm not gonna give my opinion just yet. Let's just lay it out and say people think that this should be taught in school. Do you agree, Sean? Do you agree or disagree that in general, more like hard life skills like that are financial related should be taught in school?
I, I definitely think my answer is yes, but I think it would have to be in a very like particular format. I think there's a lot of strategy and opinion to like making financial decisions. And it's very dependent on the individual. So I think teaching a like standardized class would be very difficult to design. But I think what it does do is it makes the students think about finances. And I think it allows them to get more financially literate. So a some kind of financial course that allows students to be able to be exposed to different strategies of saving money, investing, simple like skills like that, but it's not, it's a very unopinionated kind of course. I think is really beneficial because I think a lot of people like get smacked in the face with like, oh, I don't know what any of these terms mean. When they start to, need a checking and a savings account and, get a 401k and like what's the best strategy for that? And I don't know what a Roth IRA is, stuff like that. So I think yes, but I think it would just have to be in a very particular format.
Here's a quick thought. You you took classes in school, right?
Yeah.
And some of those classes you remember nothing from, right?
Yeah.
That would still happen.
Fair.
And you would probably still have most people coming out of it with close to nothing. And I think just because I'm gonna censor myself a little bit, but just because I'm in the space in a few different ways, I don't know if I would trust public school to teach my kid about financial literacy. And you brought up a very good point. It's personal finance, right? Why is it called personal finance? Because it's personal, right?
It's tailored to the individual.
It's tailored to the individual, and it should change over time. I did not have the same financial situation when I became a legal adult at 18. I didn't even need to know the same stuff that I need to know now, you know.
Yeah.
But and same comment 4 5 years ago as today. I'm in different stages, and these different stages push me in different directions. That said, I agree with you that just being taught like what is the stock market will be important because I think well, I don't think I know that it's what's the word cliche.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, right? And knowledge is also like security and confidence. If you are insecure and not confident about something, like in terms of not having enough information, you're going to get scared easier and you're going to think it's way more risky than it is. I I think that most people still have the view that any type of investing is inherently risky. I don't agree. I think there's more risk to stay out of the market than there is in being in the market. There's more risk by just never letting your money grow and letting it sit in a savings account than there is buying the S&P 500 index fund. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So, but like, man, let's do some specific examples. How do you feel about people saying the thing like, I was never taught how to apply for a mortgage, or I was never taught how to buy a house? Should that even be something that's taught? Like that's really easy.
Yeah, that
Like I don't
specifically,
want to
I don't
be
know
like
about that.
I don't want to be like mean to anyone who like thinks it's difficult, but like it's set up to be as frictionless as possible. The bank literally just wants to give you as much money as possible without overextending the federal guidelines, right? And if you teach those federal guidelines in school, I seriously doubt anyone's going to remember it anyway. So they're going to end up going to YouTube whenever it's time to buy a home, regardless. So I don't think it's any benefit really. Oh, yeah, I remember hearing that. Is that a benefit to that person? No, I don't think so. Anyway, like it's really easy. Worst case, you start to apply for a home loan and they're like, oh, we need this document, this document, this document. They walk you through the whole process. You know what
That's
I'm saying?
true. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, how do I get in contact with a broker? There's probably already a broker who put that house on the MLS and their numbers right there. And you just call them and you're like, hey, I want to buy this house. They're like, sick, let's go see it today.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot of that like basic information can be, you can find that information on the internet with like a quick Google search too. Um, Especially with
Yeah,
the things like, you got the things like balancing a checkbook, which I don't know who does that anymore, but I could
I
probably
don't know.
make a Google search and figure out how to do that right now.
Well, you can
Uh,
make a Google search and find out what a Roth IRA is.
that too.
My
Um,
point, I think my point is like, I don't think it's needed.
okay. I have a thought, and I think maybe where I'll just I'll just say this. Classes, yes, you usually don't remember whatever it is you learn, and maybe like a class format for something like that probably wouldn't be beneficial. But I also think there's just issues with like the class format and how it is in general.
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
I mean, just from the get go, that's something to consider. What if does like the school system that you're a part of, do they still do those like community read things?
Now that I know of.
Okay. Maybe what I think should exist is maybe more incentive to get exposure to financial type books or financial information in some way outside of the scope of a classroom specifically. So like when I was in school, they did community reads like once a semester where it's like they would choose a book that's like it was always fiction. And
Mm.
it was like it always had some kind of deep message. I think one of them that I remembered was that happened like when I was in school was 13 Reasons Why, which was about like depression and
Yeah,
suicide and stuff like that.
yeah.
And there was like one day in the semester where every class we were supposed to spend like 30 minutes or something talking with the instructor about a theme from the book or something like that. Maybe something like a format like that where you are told to like, hey, read Rich Dad Poor Dad and we're going to talk about it for 30 minutes in every class period, or hey, read Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins, or
Yeah.
you know
Or Richest Man in Babylon or something like that.
yeah, or
Yeah.
One Up on Wall Street.
Dude. Yeah. If there was if I taught a stock course in I wouldn't do it in high school. I wouldn't even if someone asked me to, I would never do it. But if
Yeah.
I taught one in college, bro, we'd be reading that book. Such
That
a good
one
one.
would be a hard one. I mean, those would probably be harder to sell from like an incentive standpoint. Like it's probably going to be harder for students to be like, okay, I want to go pick up and read this. But like if you have like a format like that where like instructors kind of have to like talk about it for 30 minutes, so like even the students who choose not to read it will get like a spark notes version of it during the day. I still think that's going to be more beneficial because I think that'll get them thinking about it a little bit more, and they don't have to think about it as like I have to go do my finances homework, I have to go define these terms and terms that
Okay,
I'm going to forget
here's
what
a
they
thought.
are.
Here's a thought. What if there was like a we're putting our superintendent, we're board of education presidents right now, okay?
Yeah.
What if there was like a thing that was basically mandatory where it's like, I don't know, 20 minutes a day where, dude, I don't know. This is so tough. Honestly,
It
here's
really
my
is.
real opinion. Your parents should probably teach you about this.
Well, yeah, I definitely agree with
But
that.
it's
That's a
tough.
cultural
Like
issue.
it's tough for the parents to teach it something. Not making excuses on parents' behalf. I'm not a parent, so I really can't speak on it to be honest. But I think in general, it should be a cultural thing where it is okay to talk about money and how to make more of it and the power of multiple streams of income and what is a stock and why you should own them whenever you're an adult and when to
Yeah,
start, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you were saying like, yeah, well, it's important to have conversations. That's what I got from what you just said. It's important to have conversations.
right.
Why don't we have more time where it's just like you get to have conversations about things, but it's like structured and it's guided, you know? I
I'm
feel
here
like
for
this could
that.
be in terms of public school, it could be like once a week,
I
you
think
know,
that would be good.
everyone kind of, every instructor or teacher, whatever you want to call them, like, hey, lead an opinion based discussion on this topic right here, where you're like clearly the leader and you want to display these few different things, and it's your opinion. And then let's say you have like four teachers in a semester. Hopefully, all four of those teachers are going to get to talk about the same thing, and you're going to get four different views of that thing. It could be like, I don't know, if we're talking about finance, I just thought about credit cards. People have just very crazy different opinions on credit cards. So if someone comes and talks to me, I'm like, oh yeah, get a credit card like right when you turn 18, immediately. Why don't you have one now? And here's why, and I'll give them all the reasons, and I'll give the caveat of like, you could totally screw yourself over really, really easily if you get stuck in a credit card debt situation. But here's how you never do that, and then I would kind of like lay out my framework. And then someone else would just have the argument of like, well, why would you ever get in that situation in the first place by having a credit card? Don't even expose yourself to the risk. Anyway, I think that could be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that too. Well, maybe not that specifically, but like I've thought about when I started to get into more like spiritual practices of like meditating or like yoga or something. I don't know, just topics like that. I've always thought like, man, how beneficial would it be if there was like some kind of self-actualization conversations that happened,
Yeah.
in school. But then I was like, you can't really put that in a class format because that's just going to feel like a
Uh,
janky health class that
yeah.
nobody would be receptive to. And like there would, you would have to have a very particular kind of teacher to teach that class to where it would be beneficial. Otherwise, it's just going to be dull, boring, and not get across the way that you want it to be. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe a format like that where it's just like a conversation that is brought up would be really beneficial.
And
Um,
dude, every school, like for a particular county, it could just be like whatever the mascot is, and then talk at the end. You know what I mean? So like Sun Valley High School is where I went to high school. And it's like right down the road. It could be like Spartan talk, and that's like a block of the day, but it's like short. Maybe it's like right after lunch or something, or after first block. So it doesn't matter. Like some specific time, and then you have like the certain rotation of like, oh, you go to your first block teacher this day, and then this, then you that day, and then Friday it's like, I don't know, a free day or something. Talk about whatever you want. Monday
yeah,
you're supposed to talk about this. Tuesday you're supposed to talk about that. And it's like guided conversations. And I would think it'd be super beneficial to keep them really short, or else it would probably, I feel like some teachers would turn it into like study hall, and they'd be like, I don't want to talk about this study hall time.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm. That'd be interesting. I feel like that make teachers a better teacher too, because I feel like a lot of teachers, it's like hit or miss what teachers want to invoke regular conversation and what teachers just kind of want to talk at you. And if they're kind of like
yeah,
told like you need to lead some kind of guided conversation with the students and allow them to talk to each other and you give your opinion and listen to theirs, like it would probably, encourage you to teach that way too, which I think is a much more effective way of teaching.
I
So,
agree.
yeah. Mm.
Mm,
Your
we're getting
best friend's
somewhere.
principles. That's right.
Oh,
We are going into the administration.
uh,
Nah. It is an interesting thought experiment though. There's a
yeah,
lot of things of with school that, could change and I think be really beneficial for both the students and the
I agree.
instructors.
I think knowledge is power. So it should. I mean, there should be some way to learn about it. Just in a class, it's not the way. I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I
And I
mean,
don't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say finances is one of those things where it's like I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. Reading books is just like you have the top knowledge from some of the top performing killers in the world, like just at your fingertips, and you have the ability to like, learn how Ray Dalio invests, and how Peter Lynch invests.
Yep,
And it's just so beneficial to be able to have your those tools at your disposal. And I think being able to like be motivated to like take a look at some of that knowledge during your high school times would be beneficial and probably more effective than like some finances teacher that probably isn't doing as well as those people. So it's like if you're
Yeah,
motivated to read those things, I think it would cultivate a lot of good conversation. You would learn a lot. You'd become more financially literate quicker than if it was just in a classroom setting.
I agree. Yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, I feel like this right here does not happen ever where it should happen. Like, to be honest, us talking about this on the podcast, what is this going to achieve?
That's true.
It in terms of like actually moving the education system forward, probably nothing. That's a pessimistic view of it. But it's fun to talk about. But the people that should be talking about this flat out are not. Like
Do
not even a single, probably has never come up ever.
you think it's just like a just because of like a drastic disconnection between them and the students? Just
I
like
think
not
that's part of
being
it.
like aware, I
Yeah,
guess.
I think most school boards like forget what the real purpose of their like position is. I would say there's two people that matter a lot in school, and then the rest matter like a little bit. So I have a counterpoint to this in just a sec, but I will say the teacher and the student are the most important individuals in a educational setting. Period. And if someone disagrees and they feel like it's the principal, I feel like the only basis you have to say anyone above the teacher is a more important entity or person is to say that without specific structure, things wouldn't be as efficient. I see that argument, but I also see that you can poke 100 million holes through it to see how inefficient it is with over structure. Way too much, way too many people looking down on this thing and having opinions about it and forcing this thing in there and forcing this thing in there and forcing this thing in there. It's too much structure, too much red tape, too many things that you have to do and too many things that you cannot do. Way too much structure, I think, is the big issue. And all of the levels of like checking off like whether or not this is a good idea to change this thing. I think, yeah, I think that's the biggest issue with education
Yeah, I would
is
agree with that.
way too top heavy.
Yeah, and it creates a big disconnection from the top to the bottom. It's like, the principals are not as engaged with the students as much as the
No.
teachers are. They don't know what the like best thing for the students are. If there is that much, you know, that many levels between them and the students, they're not fully aware of what the students need at, particular moments in time. So,
Yep.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that.
It's so tough though because it's like, what do you do? Cut principal pay and pay teachers more? Like, how much is cutting principal pay really going to help pay teachers more? There's like 100 teachers to 4 principals. It's like nothing. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
You have to cut their pay so much they're getting paid like less than a teacher, and then it's like, well, that doesn't really make sense because they have to be there longer hours and they have more like um, litigation possibilities. They could get sued a lot easier. They have more students. I don't know. It's so tough.
It was
Probably
tough.
just the fact that government's in it is what broke it in the first place. But
What's going on, you guys? It's Sean from Your Best Friends. Thank you so much for watching this clip. If you're interested in seeing the full conversation, make sure to check the link down in the description. If you would like to see other episodes of Your Best Friends, go check out our full YouTube channel. We try to release new episodes of Your Best Friends every Thursday. Again, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.